Hey everybody, Mr. Ian here, and today we're going to be looking at how we're going to be collecting our data that we got from Nishikar and collecting it as not only as a class but as a team to figure out what does a strong, moderate, and weak result look like for our different criteria and for our design. As of right now, you have individual feedback from Nisha, but that individual feedback doesn't really give us specifics about how much we need to improve our costs or our cargo damage or the overall pod condition. It just tells us whether or not we're at a good spot, a moderate spot, or kind of a weak spot with our design and the results that it gets. So that leaves us with a lot of questions, and hopefully we're going to answer today as we look at how to record Nisha's feedback in the feedback sheet. That's the first thing we're going to be breaking down today. And then how to answer the reflection questions in the next task. These questions are going to help guide us as to what do those strong, moderate, weak results look like, and that range of data that we can look at so we know what kind of trade-offs that we can make to find our optimal design. So in the next task, you're going to start by clicking on this sheet here, and that's going to open up our design feedback sheet. Now you're going to look and notice that we're on the home page where it's got a bunch of data. We're not going to worry about that right now, but first you're going to find your class period at the bottom of the tabs or bottom of the sheet with those tabs. So first period's in red, second period's in blue, third's in orange, fifth's in green, and sixth's in purple. From there, let's say we're in first hour, we're going to go into our sheet here, and you'll notice that there are 3 columns and 3 rows. We have our strong in green, moderate in yellow, weak in red, and then we have our shell condition is the first column, cargo damage is the second, and pod cost is the third. Now, for your results, you're going to have to look at Nisha's feedback and figure out where did your feedback fall. So, for example, let's say you had a shell condition that was watertight. Okay, and that was a strong result. You're going to find an open box here in that first section for shell condition and strong, and you're going to put your result in there. Let's say your cargo damage was moderate according to her feedback, so you're going to find moderate, you're going to find cargo damage, and you're going to put your data somewhere in one of these boxes. Try to pick a box that hasn't been selected yet. So for example, maybe your cargo damage was 10%. Okay. And then finally, same with cost, okay? Let's say, again, we go into our feedback from Nisha. Nisha said your cost was weak, okay? Maybe your cost was $5,000, okay? And notice your data is only going to go in 3 boxes, but it's got to go in the right box for whether it was strong, moderate, or weak. So, for example, if you had a moderate shell condition, and let's say it was, I don't know, shade only, then you'll put your result in the moderate for shell condition. Let's say your cargo damage is really good at 0.1%, okay? Then that would go in that section, again, finding a box that hasn't been selected. And let's say our pod cost was really good. You only spent $100. Again, you'll find a random box that's not used and put 100, okay? Notice, again, you're only putting your 3 data points in whatever column and row Nisha gave you your feedback in. So you have to find the right row with the right column. Strong, moderate, or weak for your shell condition, cargo damage, and pod costs. From there, you're going to go to the home page, and you're going to see that there's a lot of data showing up for period 1, and then our class totals here. This data is going to give us a range of information about what would be the max and minimum costs, max and minimum cargo damage, and overall shell conditions that would lead to strong, moderate, and weak results. So, for example, if we're looking at our class totals here, you'll notice that we have a maximum cost for strong at 100 and a minimum cost. Well, we need more data points to see what that is. So let's say maybe it was 200, okay? Let's say this was 50. And let's say this was 1,000. So on that home screen, you're going to notice it's going to start to give you a range for maximum and minimums, okay? That you can look at and say, okay, here's the maximum minimum I could get to have a strong result for cost, a maximum minimum result for cargo damage, and for our overall pod conditions. Now, these ranges are what you're going to record here in the questions. Okay, so when looking at the data in the pod design feedback sheet, what cargo percentages would someone need to get in order to have strong, moderate, and weak pod designs? So you're going to record what is that range that we need to have for a strong cargo damage? What's that range we need for moderate? And what's that range we need for weak? So maybe your range for strong cargo damage is 0 to 5%, whatever it might be. Okay. Maybe your moderate, based on the results, was 10% to 12%. I'm making this up, obviously, and so on. So that you know, what does that range look like in order to be successful? Again, in order to know where you can then make trade-offs to improve your overall design. You'll do that with cost as well. What's that range for cost? So maybe a strong is 0 to 100. Maybe moderate is 200 to 500, and so on. And the last but not least, what were those conditions? What was a strong condition? What was a weak condition? And what was a moderate condition? These ranges are then going to help you improve your overall design and make great trade-offs to hopefully either figure out, hey, my first design is actually optimal, or hey, I can actually get a more optimal design from here on out. So, take a second. Do we understand how to record our data in the pod design feedback sheet? Do we understand how to find our class period? Do we understand how to take our 3 data points, strong, medium, moderate, and weak for our 3 criteria and find the right boxes? And then last but not least, do we understand how to answer the reflection questions? Do we understand those ranges we're looking to find for all 3 parts of that question? If that's a little confusing, put your X in yellow and red and reach out. Otherwise, good luck.